This is Senator Adam Hollier, and this is the We Can Do Better podcast. And I'm excited to have a very special guest with us. That's Cynthia Douglas. She's the president of the Grosse Pointe Harper Woods and Naacp. She's a friend, and I'll let her introduce herself. But before I do that, I just want to thank everybody who's been tuning in and listening, and thank everyone for all the folks who've reached out. As many of you know, my Aunt Joan passed, Billy Joan Gibbs. She was a longtime Detroit educator as a teacher and then a principal, ultimately retiring from Handstein Elementary, and was at a couple different places. But throughout COVID-19, we've all had to deal with loss, some due to COVID, some not. But the way we have dealt with those kind of moments and the way we are accustomed to grieving is different. It has been different this year. It's been different for my family and particularly my mom. So I just want to thank everybody for all the folks who have reached out and sent their love and who are praying and doing all those kind of things, because it really matters, and to encourage folks to reach out while you still can. You know, I started 2020 not sending a thank you note to a good friend of mine, Marlo Stoudemire, who was one of the first Detroiters to ultimately pass from COVID-19. And we were at an event together, Pancakes and Police in the district, sitting together, and I wrote him a note right then saying, "Hey, thanks, looking forward to connecting on this next thing." And that thank you note sits on my desk every day today to remind me to say thank you quicker, but also to get those kind of things out. So as we are in these spaces where I know we're all feeling isolated and dealing with these kind of things, it's really important and incumbent on us to reach out to the people that we care about, to say thank you and to give them their flowers while they're around, because that's the only time they can take advantage of them. So Cynthia, if you want to introduce yourself, I'd love to kind of get going.
Of course, thank you very much for having me on your show. My condolences to you and your family as you mourn the loss of your aunt. I know it can be difficult, but my prayers are with you as you go through this. So, as you said, I am the president of the Grosse Pointe Harper Woods NAACP. Been the president for 2 years now. I just received my re-election, so I'll be serving another 2 years. Thank you. We will be having a swearing-in ceremony on Thursday during our general membership meeting. So I'm excited about that, and working with our new and past officers who were re-elected as well. So I also work for Wayne County during the day. I'm the executive assistant to the commission. Been there for 15 years or so. So it's been a little while. So that's what I do as well. So I'm just honored to serve both of those entities, the NAACP as well as Wayne County, for all this time. So that's it.
Yeah. You have a new member there on the Wayne County Commission. Jonathan Kinlock was
yes,
to
we
replace,
do. Yes.
Commissioner Ware, who passed somewhat untimely again at the end of the year, as we talk about, all the folks that we've lost.
Yeah, and I was Commissioner Ware's executive assistant for 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I worked for her for 4 years as her executive assistant and learned a lot from her. Tough lady, but she was very intelligent and, just a hard worker. And she's going to be missed in the community as well as the commission. But, Jonathan Kinlock is a good addition. So looking forward to working with him. I've known Jonathan for a long time, so, but I've never worked with him in this capacity. So looking forward to that.
That's cool. Yeah. Jewel was my commissioner, and now Jonathan is my commissioner. So that's the district I live in. But as we talk a little bit about what's going on in the Pointes and in Harper Woods, can you just tell a little bit what the priorities are for the NAACP there, as we talk about how things have gone and changed? I know there was a driving toward the end police brutality, earlier I guess that was last year, going through the Grosse Pointes, and that was starting in Harper Woods, but that was like a very real change for me. Like, that is not the way I think Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods had been viewed. So do you want to talk a little about the role that the NAACP has played in that, and where you see moving forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So actually we started an initiative last year with the public safety officers of the all 5 points and Harper Woods and extended it to East Point. So
Hmm.
we have monthly meetings with the public safety directors of those cities, municipalities, to discuss ways that we can work with them to develop better relationships with community, and to provide assistance in hiring practices of people of color.
Hmm.
Because, there's not, I think just recently they hired an African American male for the city of Grosse Pointe. So we want more of that. I believe that Woods has a firefighter that's an African American. However, we want more representation on those departments. And so we're working with those municipalities to see how best we can serve to make that happen. So
It's
the
always sorry, it's always a sad moment when you're like, I think there's one here and one there,
absolute
and across 6 or 7 communities, you're like, I think I can count everybody on my right hand. And you're like, I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. In a community like Harper Woods, that's more than that's just now more than 50% Black. And I know in Grosse Pointe, they're looking for a new police chief and have been having some discussions about a new public safety director in Harper Woods after this one retires, I guess, later this year. Is that what we're?
Right, and we did a resolution recently for the Woods in order to ask them to really take a hard look at their department and see how they can ask or get other minorities to come to the Woods to work. I know is they have a different kind of criteria. Some of them they say they have to have police and fire,
Mhm.
but we're working with them to see what it is that we can do to get, minorities in here, people of color in here. Harper Woods also is looking. We just got a notice yesterday, I believe, that they're looking for public safety officer.
Mhm.
So we're trying to post that. We're posting that on our Facebook page, on our website, asking other entities that service African Americans to post it on there so that we can try and, you know, get some qualified. We want qualified individuals, but we also want individuals that look like the community.
Mhm.
Because right now, Harper Woods, I don't believe they have a Black police officer. They don't have a Black police chief, of course, or anyone in close to the leadership roles out there. So we're looking for qualified individuals. However, it would be great to have, 2 Black police officers. Okay. But we're still looking for qualified individuals. However, it would be nice to have individuals that look like the community, which is um, individuals of color. I mean, because the demographics are changing throughout the points, and Harper Woods is over 50% Black. So we want that to look like the community. I mean, we've made strides in our councils out here. We've had the first Black female council person in the Woods. Terrence Thomas is in the city, I believe.
It is.
Yeah, so we're making some headway, but we still have a long way to go. So we're here to assist in any way we can. We want, like I said, we want our public safety and our council and elected officials to look like the community that they serve. So,
And that makes a huge difference. And I really appreciate you talking about some of how the demographic shift has happened, in that it's not asking these communities to shift to being 100% represented, but just to do a better job than they have been, recognizing that the communities that they are serving have changed and continue to shift, uh, whether that's the Grosse Pointes or Harper Woods. And so, speaking of kind of those kind of shifts, I had the pleasure of having the mayor of Harper Woods on, and she's the first uh, Black woman, or the first Black person, first Black woman to be the mayor. And as you've seen kind of some of these firsts in the points, what is NAACP, continuing to do, and what are you thinking about as we look forward to what you need to get done this next year and going forward? What's on the agenda?
okay, so on our agenda for this year, of course, is continuing to build on the relationships that we have with the departments public safety, and as well as working with the mayors of all those cities and council to push the agenda for diversity and inclusion in
Mhm.
cities. So like I said, we passed the resolution in Grosse Pointe Woods.
Mhm.
And we want to look for ways to work on police reform. That is one of the things that we want to do, especially surrounding mental health,
Okay.
working with the communities. We've heard from people who come into our community who do not feel as welcome as they should
Mhm.
for various reasons. Police, let me just say, um, the public safety officers in these areas, in any area, especially during these times, are facing a lot of challenges. And we understand that their job is not easy. And to try and balance trying to be, as equal as possible is difficult. However, that is not to say that there's room for improvement because we all know that, racism still exists. We're not
Absolutely.
saying that they encourage it. However, you do have people who still feel, and who still judge individuals who are of color that come in our community as people who might start trouble.
Mhm.
We don't want that. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody that comes in our community means well, but until they do something to show you that they don't,
Mhm.
you should not judge them just because they're of a different color than you are. So we're trying to work to build those relationships between the communities and within our own community. I was telling the story before. I was raised in an all white community. We were the first Black family to move there. So my racism experience didn't happen until later on in my life, towards high school and after I graduated. So, but when I moved in this community, after living in Detroit all my life, and after hearing all the stories and being afraid to come into this community, that I don't leave my house without my ID.
Mhm.
I make sure I have my ID on me because I don't know, and I've never had a bad experience with police officers out here, but just the way that I grew up and my experiences and just hearing from after living in Detroit and coming here, I just constantly keep my ID on me.
And
So as I walk in my community where I pay taxes, and so that is what I do. And we need to
and
change that mindset.
yeah, I
So,
don't want to cut you off, but I just want to make it clear for some of our listeners who may not understand why you carry your ID. You're carrying your ID so that if you were ever stopped or pulled over, you could show that you do in fact live in the community that you're in,
right,
because you feel a responsibility to justify why you were there, noting that people who look like us, that's Black people. So for folks who were just listening, that they
right,
know that you belong because that is something that is often required.
correct, of people of color.
Mhm.
And there have been several stories of instances like that where people are approached, asking, where they're going and if they live here. I can't verify those. However, these have come from reputable people that I
Mhm.
know, some of them members of our branch. So I just do that as a practice myself because I just don't, want an issue to arise. So, but that's because of the things that have happened historically here in this community. And they still happen now, I'm sure, but I that to protect myself, that's what I do. So that's but we need to change that mindset though. That's the whole thing. We need to change that mindset and to have people feel welcome, especially residents that live here, and then if we have visitors, they say it's a welcoming community, then we need to show that. So and I'm not saying that it always comes from police officers. You have residents that do the same thing. My
Mhm.
experience when I moved here, I had a neighbor who their daughter was visiting, and I'm in my yard, and she came up to me and said, "You live here?" Yes, I do. I mean, for her to ask that question, it was like, would you have asked that if it was somebody else? So I was a little offended, but I'm
That's
here.
That's the thing. And I think it's important for us to continue to have these conversations. I had a conversation similarly with one of my colleagues who represents a more affluent suburban community. And we just had, a pretty frank and honest conversation about the things that I had to do as a Black man versus some of the things that she has to do as a, being a woman. And she's a white woman, and how different her life experiences are at different moments, whether it be interactions with the police or going out for a run or going out for a walk or doing, different kind of things. And
Right.
so similarly, I have a high visibility vest that says U.S. Army and my name and rank on it. And I wear that when I run because I want people to know that I'm running for fitness and not away from something. People are like, why are you wearing that bright thing? It's like, and this is something that I've been doing, for years, not just because of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, but because we know that that is the reality in which we live in, right? When I used to work for Senator Johnson, who was, my predecessor here in the legislature, we had a constituent, white woman, who routinely called our office because her husband, who was a Black man, was always getting pulled over in Grosse Pointe, just always pulled over, always pulled over, pulled over, pulled over, pulled over, pulled over. And then I was like, we're trying, whatever. Her solution was they put a Grosse Pointe South sticker, high school sticker in the back window. He never got pulled over again.
Mm. Yeah, see, we need to change that. It's like, why are you pulling these people over? I've had several stories about that. You drive up, people are afraid to drive up Lakeshore.
Mm-hmm.
People of color are afraid to drive up Lakeshore. I mean, and that's just what it is because they feel that they'll get pulled over or they have been pulled over on Lakeshore. I had a girlfriend who was pulled over, during the holiday. They have beautiful lights on Lakeshore. And everybody comes around and takes a look at the lights on Lakeshore. I do all the time. I've lived here for 14 years now. And I always go up Lakeshore just to see the Christmas lights. They're just beautiful. And just the water itself, that's just an added bonus. But she was out. She was pulled over by the police. She hadn't been drinking. And they told her she was swerving. And she was just out looking at the lights.
Well,
So,
you know,
uh,
it,
you know,
in
go.
Michigan, everyone's swerving, but that's because we have a pothole issue, not necessarily anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, it's but we get that kind of story all the time. So, we're trying to build those relations. That's one of the things we're trying to do is build relations with the community and public safety officers, and also to try and get an oversight committees. We're
Mhm.
talking about those as well. I can't understand how you get complaints and the complaints against your departments, and they come to you and then you decide on how, what to do with them.
Yeah.
So you're policing yourself. That is not how I think things should be done. And I think those need to change. Have a community um, policing, forum or something like that, and that can review those complaints and then talk to the chief about those of how it can be resolved. So I think that's something that we need to focus on as well. And just building relationships within this community. So those are mainly our focuses is on public safety and inclusion of everybody in the community. So and just building those relationships.
No, that's critical. And I had a good friend of mine, Rodney Jacobs, who does civilian oversight in the Miami-Dade Police Department, on the podcast a few weeks ago, talking about just those kind of issues and how important it is to have someone who is external, who is an expert, who can watch and talk about these complaints and these issues. So those are really important topics that I think everyone is looking into in these spaces. How do people get involved with the NAACP if they're interested? What do they do? How do they, when do you meet? Like, what's that look like?
We meet on the fourth Thursdays of every month at 6 o'clock. We usually post the meetings on our Facebook page. We're getting ready to launch our website
Hmm.
shortly. It should be up and running by Monday, I'm hoping. We were hoping for today, but that didn't happen. But, as you know, it takes time to build a quality site, and we want it to be informative to where it'll be easy to navigate. So that's what we're working on. But our meetings are the fourth Thursdays of every month. We also have a youth division that we encourage youth in the area to be involved in, because as you know, that's another aspect that we're working on our agenda, is to get the youth involved. We've seen where they organize the marches here in the Grosse Pointes and in Harper Woods. The alumni of Harper Woods, I believe, high school, did one this past summer, which I attended, and I saw you there as well. And it was very well organized. We also had several here in the Grosse Pointes. Bianca Garcia, who did one, and she's remained involved. So we have our young people that are getting involved now, and they've taken on the torch and they're running with it. And it's exciting to see how they're getting involved in these matters that affect them. So we're asking youth to come out. We have a dynamic, our youth chair is Jalen Bradley. He's a recent graduate of University of Michigan, I believe. Yeah. And so he's a recent graduate, and he's hardworking. He's great. Jalen is wonderful. So they would have someone within their age group to work with and to voice their opinions and develop their own agenda. So that's what we're asking them to do, is to do that, because we know that they're our future. I don't plan on being president forever. Uh, I mean, I would rather be looking at a young person doing this and leading. And so, I mean, I'm enjoying this as we're doing this now, but, I would love to see a young person take this over and, put it in a different direction, because, they have different views than we do, and so I just want to hear their voices. So we encourage them to join our branch. We always post our memberships forms on our Facebook page, and it will also be available on our website when it's
Perfect.
launched.
What is your name on Facebook?
Grosse Pointes, Harper Woods, and NAACP.
Okay. So
You do a search, you'll find us.
that's
Mhm.
easy to find. Sometimes the names are kind of tricky. It's like
Yeah.
GPHWWW. You're like,
No.
whoa.
No, we're Grosse Pointe Harper Woods, and NAACP is very simple. So
Awesome.
yeah,
So,
right.
that's really good to know and good to hear. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
look for our Black History. We're planning something for Black History Month. We're in the works for that. And of course, Black History and Women's Health is
Mhm.
also February. For our general membership meeting, we're going to ask our members to wear red,
Okay.
to support that. And also Women's History Month is in March, and also Martin Luther King's speech, which was done at South,
Mhm.
was on March 4th. So we'll be doing a few things for that. So look out for us, check our website often, check our Facebook page often. We're going to have several things for people to get involved with. So we're just asking you to join us. This is a great time to join. The fight continues, and we need everybody to participate. We need the conversation to continue.
Cynthia, before you kind of glossed over Dr. King giving his speech at Grosse Pointe South. I think our listeners probably need to know that. So I know I've been able to attend that event in the past, and it's for all those who haven't. It's a wonderful event that I'm sure you'll get back to post-COVID. But if you want to explain to everybody what that was.
Yeah, so Martin Luther King did a speech, The Other America, at South. Actually, he did that speech a few months before he was assassinated. So he did that speech. He was not welcomed here. He was, but then he wasn't. So, of course, everywhere Dr. King went, there were protesters. There were people who did not want him here. As a matter of fact, during the speech, we used to, when we first became a chapter, we played his entire speech at South.
Mhm.
South has the chair that Dr. King sat in. They put that on display. And we played the entire speech that first year. We had a huge turnout. People sat and listened.
Mhm.
They congregated after, they talked about it. The second year, we did the same thing. We had some youth to come in to talk about how they felt about the speech. So for the last few years, except for last year, because of COVID, we were not able to host that. The speech is incredible. During that speech, he had a gentleman who heckled him. And Dr. King, being the gracious person that he's always been, invited the gentleman on stage with him to have his say.
Mhm.
And he had a short discussion with him. The gentleman wound up going back and sat down, and then Dr. King said, "Okay, let's continue on with with what we were talking about." So he did, and I mean that's just one of the things I admire about Dr. King. I didn't mean to gloss over his speech because it's very important. And now that they have the marker that's at Grosse Pointe South, which is a great tribute to the school as well, and most importantly to Dr. King for willing to step out there and just um, have this speech here in a community that has since changed, but at that time, they weren't as welcoming as some people had hoped. But
Mhm.
he did do the speech. I know the speech has been posted, I think, by WeGP. But this year we're trying to plan to do something in this COVID environment to still honor him.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the work that you all do. On a more personal note, I always ask folks how they are staying active. Physical activity I know is both has always been important to me, but you have a rich history with being active. What are you doing in this pandemic, especially as the weather has gotten cold and people are getting a little, I don't want to say stir crazy, but are getting a little cloistered?
Yeah. Well, before all of this happened, I would get up in the morning about 5:30 when I'd have to go to work and do my workout, and then I would come home and do another one. I also would walk in the building because we have an area that has call it a track. And so during the day, I would walk down there a few times for about 15 minutes during the day. So I would get my workout either way I could. But I was a former bodybuilder in my past life. I competed for 2 years, and so I hadn't always been passionate about bodybuilding. I started doing it because I was an overweight child,
Okay.
and I have arthritis, and I found that it helped my arthritis, and so I don't have a lot of flare-ups. I rarely have them. But I competed for 2 years and I kept going. I don't lift as heavy as I used to, but I still work out. So, I tell people, they always ask me for advice, and my advice is find something that you like.
Yep.
I ballroom dance as well. So, ballroom dancing is a great exercise. I salsa. So, I do all that step and, line dance and everything, do the hustle. So, you just have to find something that you like to do, to keep yourself active. And I know it's cold outside, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of free apps. If you have an iPhone or Android or any phone, they offer free apps, as well to keep you active. But you just have to find something you like. Start small. Don't start big. Don't let it scare you. Just keep it. It's going to take a couple weeks before you see any results. So you just have to find something you like, you know and that's what I do. So
So for your mental health, right? Like I think in these moments, it's easy to let the world feel so heavy with the insurrection at the Capitol, with all that 2020 was, and what COVID-19 remains to be. I think it's easy to get caught up with the doom scrolling or the like, oh, child, I heard so and so, and can you believe this? What are you doing to just kind of keep that joy in your life and to keep focus, and especially with the work that you do, where people are coming to you complaining about very real and legitimate and difficult issues?
yeah, I in the last few months I just got consumed with everything that was going on. And so I had to, at the first of the year, I decided I was going to do a 100-day challenge
Yep.
to exercise for 100 days. And so that's what I've been doing. And I journal. I've always journaled. Sometimes I fall off, but I journal, just give thanks, just give grateful for every day that you're here because, like I told you, I ballroom dance and I lost a number of friends in that community
Hmm.
who used to dance with. And so like you were saying, give everybody their flowers before they leave here, because you never know, one moment you're here and the next moment, as we've seen, with Commissioner Ware and Benny Napoleon and other friends that we have lost, think that they're going to be here forever. And that's not the case. So,
Yes.
just bring the joy to everybody that you can, especially to yourself. I journal, I read, I disconnect from Facebook at a certain time during the day. turn that computer off. Facebook is
Oh,
not that important.
mhm.
It's not. And you have a life that you can live and just meditate, just be still, just sit, light a candle and just sit sometimes. So that's what I do. Those are the things that I do during the day.
Those those some good things to do. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the good work that the NAACP is doing and how folks can get in contact with you and stay in touch. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for all the advocacy and all the hard work you do to make the Pointes and Harper Woods a safer, more inclusive community.
And
Uh,
thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you do, and look forward to continue our work with you as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time and having me on today.
Always, always. So this is Senator Adam Hollier. This is the We Can Do Better podcast, and we look forward to catching you all next week. This afternoon or this evening, Governor Whitmer will give her third State of the State address, and we're excited to tune in to that and to see some of the incredible work that she's been doing. And next week, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that she talked about and how we've got so much work to get done. So thanks, and see you next week.
Thank you.